It's not like the dust is really settling from the tariffs. We're still trying to figure out how this is going to affect the world. Just because they went into effect yesterday doesn't mean we have any real clarity on the short or the long-term situation. But check this out. We have some clarity on what Honda and Toyota are going to do. We're going to talk about that here in a little bit. But Trump's auto tariffs estimated to cost Japanese automakers $24 billion. Guys, we have so much news to cover today. Layoffs, production getting switched around, investments going on, adding new models in certain plants. Like, this is so fascinating, and it gives me a lot to talk about, which is great because that's, I'm fortunate that this is my job. And at the end, we're going to talk about Kia wanting to bring a mid-sized pickup truck for the U.S. market. Ooh, this one's a lot of fun. So guys, grab your snacks and drinks, buckle in. If you're new to the channel, my name's Kirk. Every day, every single day, just about. There are exceptions on, if I take some time off or I'm doing some family stuff. I would say 5 to 7 days out of the week, I'm updating you guys in the morning, sometimes in the afternoon as well, on car news. If you like car news, make sure you are subscribed. I have a Honda event coming up. I have a Toyota event coming up. I had to turn down a Hyundai Ioniq 9 event just because I'm too busy, but hopefully I get the Ioniq 9 in my press fleet. All right, so make sure you're subscribed for all the upcoming stuff. I'm also reviewing the Charger Daytona EV this week, as well as the SQ6 e-tron. So 2 EVs. And it'll be fun to say, where they fall in all the cars I reviewed so far this year. All right. Trump auto tariffs estimated to cost Japanese automakers $24 billion. And South Korea's Hyundai, that includes Kia and Genesis, they're boosting their U.S. production to cope with these tariffs. UBS Securities on Thursday said the tariff cost for Japan's 7 biggest car manufacturers could exceed $24 billion. In particular, Toyota's tariff costs are projected to reach as much as 1.8 trillion yen. That is roughly, that's about half, right? That's half of this. So that's around, 12 billion US dollars. Japanese car manufacturers will probably have to take some kind of action, such as transferring production to the United States. That is Trump's entire goal. The problem is, if I look at someone like Toyota and Honda, they have zero production excess, really, to ramp up production. They would have to build new plants in order to build new cars. Now, the Tacoma is built exclusively in Mexico. It was already expensive. Could you imagine getting it more expensive? The RAV4 is partially built in Canada, as well as the NX and RX. If you look at Honda, they don't have excess production capacity that I'm aware of. And yes, they build things in Mexico and Canada as well. Now, if we look at Nissan is an interesting thing because Nissan, they're highly affected by how the cars that come in from Mexico, like 40% or so of the cars they sell in the United States are made in Mexico. That's the Sentra, the Versa, and the Kicks. Could they move those production things to the United States? Well, actually, they have tons of excess capacity in the United States in Smyrna, Tennessee. I toured that plant this past fall. They also have tons of production capacity available in their Canton, Mississippi plant. But it takes a long time to move supply chains and move vehicle production from one plant to another. It takes years, typically. We might see some sort of unprecedented speedy things happening for Nissan, for example. We'll get to Nissan here in a little bit, but anyways, that's just an example. The Koreans will have excess production capacity. Remember, they just opened their Meta plant around Savannah, Georgia. So they will have more U.S. production capacity, but they're still very in danger, not only from Mexico built vehicles, but also, of course, the vehicles built in Korea, which are a ton. Japan Auto Manufacturers Association says more than 30% of all Japanese car exports in 2023 went to the U.S., making it the single largest country of export destination. Now, of course, Subaru brings a lot of vehicles in from Japan. Mitsubishi's exclusive from Japan now that the Mirage, which was made in Thailand, is canceled. So Mazda is very heavily dependent on Japan. Their best seller, for example, the CX-5, and then you have the CX-97. I could keep going, right? Most of their cars are built in Japan. And trading data by Japan's Ministry of Finance showed that cars accounted for 30% of total exports from Japan to the United States. It's looking quite scary. We need to move on. What is Toyota and Honda doing right now? Well, apparently they're not raising prices. If we look at Korean Hyundai, they're not moving prices yet either. And yesterday we talked about how Ford actually is decreasing prices, even on their Mexican-made cars, at least temporarily. All right, they're kind of giving everyone employee pricing. Parts makers with less financial leeway face bigger risk from the 25% auto levy. All right, so here's the thing. The bigger company, the bigger manufacturers, Honda, Toyota, they can stomach some of these tariffs. But the smaller companies that supply Honda, Toyota, all these other manufacturers are much more heavily affected from these tariffs. That, if your supplier goes under, you can't build cars. Look at what happened with the chip supply debacle post-COVID, right? That could happen here. This is, guys, a lot of people are worried about the prices of cars. But what's more worrisome is that the small parts manufacturers could go belly up and then no cars can be made. Now, if you think of someone like Tesla, Tesla is much less affected, right? They have less parts in their cars. And even if there are chip supplies, they can recode things for different chips to make it work in their cars. They're much less affected. But these legacy automakers, the parts manufacturers for them anyways, their margins are razor thin. So what is Toyota going to do? All right, we're not seeing price increases for the most part across the board. All right, we talked about how Volkswagen yesterday are stopping cars in transit from Mexico, stopping them on the rail and adding destination charges to them to cope with the tariffs. But Toyota is covering suppliers' higher costs owing to Trump tariffs. All right, not every manufacturer can do this. Toyota is one of the most profitable manufacturers, and so therefore they can help their parts suppliers in the meantime to stay afloat. Now, remember, engines, transmissions, electrical components, those tariffs, they're a month from now. So yes, we have tariffs right now on vehicles, all imported vehicles, 25%, regardless of where they come from. The 25% on parts happens early May. And then smaller components, they don't know really how to tariff them quite yet. But the bigger components, engines, transmissions, probably batteries, I'm going to be my guess. I don't know. Batteries is a tough one. Batteries is a little bit more complex, maybe because we can assemble some of the batteries here in the United States, but the material is going to come from elsewhere. Anyways, Toyota has indicated that major suppliers that it will cover the increased costs on parts imported from Mexico and Canada to the U.S. as it aims to minimize the impact on its supply chain. We got to keep moving. Yes, I'm driving this car right here this week. It's in the same red color. Stellantis laying off nearly 1,000 workers in the U.S. as tariffs pause production at some plants in Canada. Now, if you missed my video yesterday, I mean, Stellantis is a hot mess express. They're a burning garbage can right now. They have so many issues, and it's stemmed from poor leadership. Remember, Stellantis came into an existence in 2021. They're like, hey, let's team up all these manufacturers from Europe with Dodge and Chrysler and Jeep. I mean, what could go wrong? Not much good has come out of that partnership, at least not yet. We haven't seen a ton of the fruits. At least the company as well has not seen the profits from that sort of merging of companies. And we saw that Stellantis' sales have fallen for 7 straight quarters. Mind-blowing. All right. Anyways, they're laying off 1,000 workers. Does this really come as a surprise? No. They've had 7 straight quarters of decline. I mean, layoffs are expected at this point. They are pausing production at plants in Canada and Mexico in response to the tariffs. All right. Is it really response to the tariffs, or are they just using the tariffs as an excuse? You guys tell me what you think. I don't know what the truth is. Layoffs affect workers at 5 plants in Michigan and Indiana. So this is not good for auto workers, but I don't know if its tariffs are to blame here, to be honest. Stellantis North America COO Antonio Filosa emailed employees about the production cutbacks April 3rd, hours after Trump's 25% duties on vehicles imported into the U.S. took effect. The same tariff rate on major components such as engine transmissions happened May 3rd. I already mentioned that. Now, in Windsor, Ontario, where they build the Pacifica and Voyager, and the vehicle I'm driving this week, the electric Charger Daytona, will shut for 2 weeks starting April 7th. Assembly plant in Toluca, Mexico, which produces a Compass and new Jeep Wagoneer S, will be down April 7th through the end of the month. But we got to keep moving. I mean, I talked enough about Stellantis yesterday. There's just no solution in sight for that sorry company. Doesn't mean the car I'm driving right now is a sorry car. Wait for my driving impressions and my review. I'm probably going to do a nighttime review on it because the lighting on it is pretty spectacular and there's no traffic. I can drive it extraordinarily fast. Hopefully not get caught. Anyways, Nissan holds off on job cuts in Tennessee amid tariff threat as U.S.-built Rogues gain currency. All last year, it was talked about how the Rogue is cheaper to build in Japan, and they're like, we might just cut all production of the Rogue in the United States because it's just too expensive. And they're like, hey, suppliers, you need to drop costs 20-40% in order for us to keep building this car in Smyrna, Tennessee. Otherwise, we'll just build it in Japan. Well, they're going back on that because of tariffs. I mean, it seems like Trump would be happy about that, but doesn't mean, I mean, here's the thing. I just reviewed the Rogue this year. The Rogue, it's a fire sale only buy, and I would never buy it, only lease it. So I'd only lease it for pennies on the dollar. There's just so many better cars out there than the Rogue in that segment. All right, I can think of like 5 immediately off the top of my head, if not more. All right, so anyways, Nissan workers in Tennessee under threat from the troubled car makers. Yes, Stellantis is still in a hot mess. Nissan is as well, despite Nissan actually having a quarterly gain this past quarter. These cost-cutting plans may get reprieve because of the tariffs. The Japanese automaker plans to terminate a shift at its massive Smyrna assembly plant as part of the right-sizing campaign to slash 5,300 jobs worldwide last year, this fiscal year, I should say. To get around the tariffs on imported vehicles, Nissan says it will reverse the cutback, and the goal is sustaining the flow of American-made supply. Guys, they're not going to lay off. Well, they're going to lay off probably some people, but not the entire 5,300. We have decided to maintain 2 shifts of production of the Nissan Rogue at Smyrna, keeping more localized volume in the U.S. that is free of the new auto tariffs. You know, some people have already taken buyouts on those shifts, so it might not be the smoothest thing to get production back there, but at least jobs are going to be saved. All right, Nissan to pause Mexico assembly line after meeting output goals. Now, the tariffs are not a reason for this. Nissan Motor will suspend production at one of its 2 assembly lines in its plant in Mexico. The Japanese automaker used the line to adjust production levels and last brought it online in 2023 to assemble sedans. The upcoming pause is said to have been planned in advance because production goals have been met. But the bigger news here about Mexico for Nissan, it's not taking new orders on its Mexican-built Infiniti SUVs. They make the QX55 and QX50 down there. And I've been saying for, I don't know, better part of half a year, I would say at this point, that the QX50 and QX55 are likely to be discontinued. My review hasn't gone up on the QX50 yet. It's done. It's going up probably today. If you guys want to see it today, let me know. I'll probably just schedule it to go up later today. This has just been accelerated by the tariffs. So Infiniti now, guys, this vehicle, it never came. The super high performance version of the Q50. I mean, look how sexy that is. This design's super old and it still looks great. Anyways, Infiniti's designs have never been the cause of their downfall. It's a lack of compelling powertrains and a lack of new product in general over time. The Q50 that you see here, gone. So same thing, the Q60. The sedans are gone. And I mean, the Q70's been gone for a long time too. All right, the Nissan Fuga. So we have those canceled. We have no coupes anymore. We have no convertibles. We have no sedans. you have the QX80 and the QX60, but the QX60 just got nerfed this past year because they took the legendary bulletproof VQ 3.5 liter V6 out of there and replaced it with its highly questionably, an unreliable 2-liter VC turbo 4-cylinder engine. So replace bulletproof legendary V6 with a problematic 4-cylinder turbo and the QX60. It went from a highly recommended vehicle with the V6 to lease only on discount sort of vehicle, the QX60. QX80's just got a redesign. It's great. It's good. It's good. The problem is the Nissan Armada is the same vehicle, costs 20, 30 grand less, and it's essentially the same car, same truck. It's a Nissan Patrol, right? Now, here's a crazy thing. Just because the orders of the QX50 and 55 for the US market are done, they're not, the vehicle's done here. Nissan said production is expected to continue for those models sold in other markets. Infiniti is not strong anywhere outside the United States, but they're still going to make some of them for other markets where Infiniti is sold. All right. No one knows how much is sold in other markets. Apparently, they go to the Middle East and Canada. So Canadians are going to get the QX50 and 55. They're not great. They're not even good cars. They're good looking cars. But outside of that, the competition is just so much better. All right. So, yep, buy QX50 and 55. Not going to miss you. And again, stay tuned for my review on the QX50. I think it was like sticking at $52,000. Okay, so this is interesting. Remember, at that plant where the QX50 and 55 are made, Mercedes also builds the GLB down there. All right, so let's circle back to this article. Mercedes could add a model to the U.S. factory to avoid tariffs. Then in the United States, other than the Sprinter factory, in Alabama, they make the EQE, EQS, GLC, GLE, GLE Coupe, and GLS. Okay, quite a few models. What could they be adding? Well, since a GLB, what's the chances of that plant surviving down in Mexico? It was a joint venture between Mercedes-Benz and then Nissan/Infiniti. Well, I would say they've probably just moved the GLB up here. But let's see if they give us any idea of which model. The move may be necessary to deal with cost of duties. Mercedes production chief Jorg Berzer said this week, declining to comment on which model may be moved. Okay, so they don't give us a clue. GLB would make the most sense for me, but we're still assessing the impacts of the tariffs, and we have made some plans, but flexibility is absolutely key. Germany's automakers are among the most affected by Trump's higher levies on auto imports. Robust demand for profitable SUVs in the U.S. and their slower shift to EVs make it a lucrative market for the likes of Mercedes and Porsche, which I feel like this is a good segue into Volvo. Now, here's Hakan Samuelsson. I actually locked eyes with him at CES this year. He was getting like a curated tour through the Geely booth. Geely had some minivans and stuff. Remember, Geely owns Volvo. All right. And I saw him walking around. I'm like, guys, I was talking to some of my car and driver colleagues. I'm like, guys, that's the former CEO of Volvo right there, getting a tour through these cool products from Geely. And we looked eyes for a second. It was a bit awkward because I was probably one of the few people who knew who he was. Anyways, this was before he just last week got reinstated as CEO. The old is new, new is old, right? The new CEO is the old CEO for Volvo. And here he is. He's like, hey, we're going to make more cars in the United States. Now, they just killed the S60. Rest in peace, S60, especially the T8 plug-in hybrid. That thing was a sleeper. See if you can find one on the used market. I don't know how reliable they are, but that car's awesome. They need to have a high volume model. Well, in the United States, they need to make like the XC40, XC60, XC90. Which of those models are going to be made here? I don't know. You know, my wife and I were watching TV last night. There was a Volvo commercial, and it was an XC90 commercial. And it was essentially targeting to empty nesters who have no use for the second or third row anymore, and they just cram a bunch of crap in the back of their car. That's what the ad was. So that's kind of Volvo's target audience right now, is empty nesters. Look at their share price. Their shares closed at an all-time low on Friday. And look, they abandoned their EV only target in what was this? Late 2024, and their shares have not improved. So, not looking good for Volvo from an investor's perspective. But Volvo, ironically, is boosting Mexican plant investment to $1 billion. Why? I mean, the United States market, their cash cow here in the Western Hemisphere. I mean, all these manufacturers are looking to move production from Mexico to the United States. And here's Volvo putting $1 billion in its Nuevo Leon plant. That is just for the trucks. All right. So they're putting the EX30 down here. And this article is about the trucks. So that was misleading to me. Let's move on to Kia wanting to bring a midsize pickup truck to the U.S. market. Now, they can't import it into the United States because of the chicken tax, 25% on commercial vehicles. Two, the 25% on imported vehicles now. So it's a 50% import if they wanted to bring the Tasman in, which is built, I think, in Korea. All right. So this vehicle would never be brought in from Korea. It's financially impossible. So what could they do? Well, remember recently, Hyundai and General Motors are striking deals, and Hyundai's going to give commercial vans to General Motors, and General Motors is going to give trucks, mid-size pickup trucks, not full-size, but mid-size pickup trucks to Hyundai. I wouldn't be surprised if Kia gets in on it too. So you're going to have Hyundai and Kia rebadgings in theory of the Colorado and the GMC Canyon. They're not going to look as cool or as edgy as this. I think the Tasman is a cool pickup truck, but this concept looks badass AF. It looks really, really neat. It almost looks like it's taken out of like Halo or something, almost a little warthoggy. It looks really nice. All right. But again, this is just a concept. And I don't want these big tires on. Sorry, I don't want the big wheels on here. I want massive tires and small wheels. I don't know what they were thinking with that part of the concept, but the rest of it looks great. And look, you put a topper on it. Look at the extended bed on here. We're never going to get this truck unless there could be a possibility of Kia and Hyundai building a truck plant stateside or building these in the Meta plant if they have production capacity. That would be cool. I would be totally open. And if they can put an efficient hybrid in here. Now, this is body on frame. This is not unibody. This is a true truck. I had a long video today. Thank you guys for watching. I got to shut it down. If there's other pressing news with the tariff situation, which it's going to be every day. There's going to be new developings every single day with product shifting, production line shifting. There could be layoffs. We could have models being canceled. I mean, we kind of all talked about that today, but I got to shut it down there. Thank you guys for watching. Stay tuned for more auto news, more car news coming down the hatch. Peace out. Have a great day.